everybody, and welcome back to Happily Never After. I'm Kate.
And I'm Jay. I'm here. We're working on turning the page on spousal loss. I'm gonna recap
So,
the last.
yeah, the
We
recap of our last episode. What did we
yeah,
talk about last time? Do you remember? We talked about
last
finances. We talked
we
about the financial experience
financial, but
for the
we also
widows and the
talked
widowers.
about
And I
no.
think this time we've got some really great information. I know that we can talk about how we come to discover ourselves after we lose our spouses and that identity discovery. We learn some shit after our spouses die, and that's just part of the widowhood journey.
Look, Kate, put it this way. We just gonna tell artists, listen to this episode. Trust us. You're gonna love it. The lessons you learn.
Lessons that we learn from our spouses are sometimes bigger than their death. I really learned who I was.
Yes.
I got married so young, 23. I still was a baby, right? Like, and I never went away to college. Like, I lived at home and went to a community college and worked in the same town I was born in. And if had I not met Craig, I probably would still be living in that same go nowhere town. Like,
All right.
and Craig pulled me out of poverty, and he pulled me out of my hometown and gave me a little bit of like global exposure, even though it was just Mass to Connecticut. But it was an hour away. It was a completely different, it was a city compared to the town,
It's a
right?
whole new. It's a whole new what? Listen,
Like,
let me
like
explain
when you went
something.
away to college, it's completely different when you leave your hometown, right?
Yo,
I don't care if it's
you know what I'm
smaller
saying?
than where you grew up, it's different. And it is a
Yo,
culture shock and a learning curve. And I had no friends here, and I had to get a job, and I had to, like figure out putting a kid into
right.
kindergarten in a new school, a new state. And so, like, he really showed me what was out there, and I grew up because of him. And then in
Mhm.
his death, I grew up again in a different
Yes.
way, right? Like those lessons that I learned. And I didn't know that when he died, that that's what it was going to be. Like I started writing my chapter for the Faces of Grief book, and like it's
I
kind of
got a funny
all,
story for you.
oh
Go ahead.
boy.
I'm
I've
finished.
been
No, finish.
struggling with that. So like, and
No,
I'm terrible with
finish.
that stuff. I'm terrible with that stuff because like I know I can write well, but it, I tend to like get stuck on the editing portion. So I'll like write a couple paragraphs, and then I'll be like, wait, I don't like that. And so I'll like go back and I'll rework those
Oh,
three
yep,
paragraphs.
yep.
And then I'm like, you still have like 1,000 words to write, girl, get with the program. So
Well,
I'm just still editing that first 1,000 words. And I'm like, okay, but where are we going? I digress. Um,
no, it's all good.
but
Let me tell you.
I started writing my chapter,
Yeah,
and as it's coming out organically. One of the things I last remember writing was, I asked myself, what the hell am I supposed to do now after his death? And what I didn't realize ultimately was the answer that Craig was going to give me. And it just kind of came and slapped me in the face, this bigger mission, this alchemy that we
yes.
learn as a result of this experience that we've been through. And I'm sure it's that way with every loss, right? Like after my grandmother died, I learned more about my mom and about what she was like as a daughter. It was a different view of her, and friends have passed and uncles and aunts and all that thing. But when it's your spouse, when it's like 50% of your identity
Yep.
is like entrenched in this other person, and that's not a bad thing, right? It's just the natural, organic way of a marriage, of a relationship, of a companionship, of a partnership. But 50% of who we are is then just like the band-aid's ripped off and
And,
it's gone.
yo, the bananas part about it is that the world expects you to just move on like and do your thing like nothing ever happened. Like, everything is all good. And yeah, it's all good in everybody else's world. But the minute you think about something like something that normally Craig would do,
Right.
and you now have to pick up that mantle.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds you of missing him. That's the first thing. And then it reminds you of the fact that you are now 100%
By
of the
yourself.
yep,
Like I get
yep.
mad at him sometimes every year, tax time. God damn it, Craig, like you should be here to do this. I don't want to do this horse shit. Like
Right.
this was your gig. I don't want to do this. I didn't ask for this. This is horse shit. Like I get mad at tax time every year. Been doing it for
I
three
mean,
years now.
yo, listen, I let me explain something. I feel you because there were so many things that I used to, I don't want to say be mad about, but be stressed over. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? I mean, you know what? Nah, it's mad. I was pissed off, but
Yeah.
you know,
And that's
but
okay. That's
and
100% legitimate and okay. And I think we're taught to not be mad, to like, oh, release the anger and all that other touchy feely horse shit. Pardon my French. But like, yeah, the emotional stuff's important. And yeah, you eventually do have to release on the anger, but it's okay to also like sit with it and
actually
let it
be, yep,
marinate and like be
yep.
in it and like understand that you aren't necessarily mad at them specifically, although there were times where afterwards I was mad at him. I was mad at him that he did not tell me he had a life insurance policy. I was pissed at him, and I couldn't tell anybody because they're all like, oh well, at least he took care of you.
It's sometimes you find out about stuff on the back end,
Yeah.
and you know, you look, bottom line for you, it's like, man, what the hell? You know, for everybody else, they want to try to see silver lining in
Or they
that
want to help
situation.
you not be so sad or
Yeah,
be so
yeah.
angry, and they're trying to help you get over it because it makes them uncomfortable.
But you know what? You said something earlier. Look, reality is you have to sit in it for a minute. And the reason why you have to sit in it for a minute is because that actually gives you some strength.
That's
Yeah,
where your power comes from.
yes, it the bottom line is humans, when we're forced to address a situation, we get pretty creative because it becomes a matter of survival. And, you
Yep.
know, so that means sitting in it for a second and taking in, you know, those feelings, those energies.
Yeah.
It'll make you say to yourself, okay, you know what? I need to I need to get off my ass and handle something. Or say like, you know what? Yo, I'm gonna show Craig how good I am. You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
back it up
Like,
even
I'm gonna
further
show Ken
before you
how,
even
you know.
have the awareness that it's anger, because that doesn't
Right,
come right away sometimes. You know, that's later where you're just like angry and
right,
angsty and
right.
like a grumpy teenager that's got all these hormones and shit going everywhere where you don't know which direction is up and someone comes at you sideways and you bite their head off accidentally and then you're like, whoa, that's whoa, why did I do that? And you got to like sit with it and like, oh, that's anger. Why am I angry? And then you got to like untangle whether you're actually angry or if you're just grieving, and if that anger is directed at them or because of another root cause, or are you angry at yourself, or are you feeling guilt? Like it's a whole mess and nobody gives you any direction or guidance or support other than those stupid platitudes. Like he wouldn't want you to be upset, you have to do well to honor him, and he would be so proud of you. Shut the hell up. I'm mad. Let me be mad.
My thing is this: the platitudes you talk about, I am for them, but but you have a right to be pissed off first. You see what I'm
Validate it
saying?
first. Yes.
Seriously. I mean, because the truth of the matter is a big part of going through grief, going through mourning, anger, frustration,
It's
you know,
literally one of the
and
stages.
and going through it is cathartic
Oh
because
my God.
guess what? You're like, spe- especially on the fact that nobody else validates you, then that means you must validate yourself.
That's right. Which is
And
even harder to do
yes,
when you're having an identity crisis and you don't know who you are or what you're capable of or how you're going to survive or where your strength is. Like it
but you
is
know
so
what?
hard to be your own person and fill your own cup. And that's a learned skill.
Listen, you know, it's it's a skill that for real that unfortunately has to be picked up when you go through.
I wish it was
But
picked up far before this. Like I've started teaching my daughter, we do yoga every day now, and the last 5 minutes of yoga is doing like like a cool down, and we do like affirmations. It's I am strong, I am powerful, I can accomplish anything. Like I am kind, I am smart. I'm teaching her that shit now because nobody did that for
you have
me.
to
And what a difference that would have made if I had that subliminal
mentality.
message
Yep.
playing in the background when everything was crumbling around me like Pompeii. Even if I don't believe it in my conscious brain, the back of my mind would already believe it and be like, no worries, we got you. No, I
But you
had
know
to
what?
learn that shit while going through the fire. And that was
But
so much harder.
here's what's bananas about that, Kate, though.
Tell me
Look what
something.
it look what it did. Stop,
I gotta
stop with
pick on you.
that. But, but think about it. Look what it did. It put you in a place where it forced you to have to think way out the freaking box.
It was a fight or flight
Yes.
response. It really, and that
And
was a fight response, which
and
is
that
not
was
normally
it.
there.
But you know what? Again, now there are new things coming out of you based off of
Well, and
what
they have to,
unfortunately has
right?
happened.
So we think
Yeah.
about it from a scientific perspective, like the cells in your body are literally permanently changed. Your neural pathways are changed. Your
Yeah.
chemical balance is changed. Your chromosomes are changed. Like grief literally changes you on a biochemical level permanently. So those choices, actions, and reactions will be different as a
And that's
result.
actually true. True. You know what's funny? You were talking about all the things, the different things that changed. I told you I read um, Dr. O'Connor's book,
Mhm.
Grief of Brain, and how she was talking about how
Great
like
book. Like for anybody, who hasn't read it, I always tell them, I'm like, go read that book.
because it gets away from the science a little bit and it not gets away.
I think it
It
just
stays
approaches the
with the
science
science,
in a
but it
different
right,
perspective, where
right.
you're not just
It
reading a textbook or being
exactly.
taught a
You
seminar. It
you
makes the
read
science a
right.
little bit more layman's terms and palatable.
Exactly. Exactly. It's a great book because my whole thing is you're starting to see things in the perspective of what a person would see it. Like she said, she took pictures, fMRI shots of grievers' brains,
Brain. Yep.
you know. And what's
You think of those
interesting,
old 90s commercials, like this is your brain and this is your brain on drugs
very
with
on
the eggs in
drugs,
the frying pan. Like this is your
you
brain, this
know.
is your brain on grief. Like just let my
I mean,
daughter
it's
scribble a
crazy.
picture.
It's crazy. I mean, when you find that, like you said, these shifts, these changes, and look, all this comes from the fact that you originally lost something, whether it's a
I
person
also hate
or,
that word lost. I didn't go, whoops, where's Craig? Where did I put him? I didn't
right.
lose him. Like, and I think we get stuck on using that word because, again, it's softer for the people
Yes.
around us. And then it just becomes part of the griever vernacular because there's no other word. But the
And
ugly, sad,
I use
graphic
that.
truth is that Craig
It's
died.
dead.
He
Yes.
is dead. Like,
You know what?
dead, dead, dead.
Listen, I avoided using that type of terminology for a while. I'm glad you corrected me like that because seriously, I mean, Kate, for me, it's like I wanted to imagine my mind, you know, Kim was
Mhm.
gone, lost. Not that Kim was dead.
She
You know what I'm
passed
saying? And
away.
it's like, but the reality is Kim is dead. And,
And I
you
think
know,
we don't like to say it because it reminds us of the permanence of it too.
yeah.
Like it
And
makes other people uncomfortable, but it also like that trigger for us, that like hitch in your breath when you remember. I don't know about you, but like the early days, I would wake up and then like forget that he had died and like go to call him and then like remember and like have a meltdown. Not that I like literally forgot, but there would be like
yeah.
a
The,
lapse
the
in
the
stuff.
void, listen, man, foggy brain, all that. You know what
If
I'm
you
saying? I
were like
mean,
in the twilight zone for the
yes,
first year and a
yes.
half, like that brain fog that people talk about, it's so much worse than pregnancy brain. Like I had pregnancy brain and I
See, I
have
was saying, I don't know
short-term
about that.
memory.
Sorry.
No, but like again, that's one of the gender disparities too. Like, the whole point of this podcast, we talk about the different gender filters, right? Everyone
That's
says,
true.
"Oh, widow's brain or widower fog or whatever." It's so real. And
Yeah.
I've had pregnancy brain and I have short-term memory problems because of ADHD. This is like unlike anything else I've ever experienced. It is just nasty. This is like going to
Yo,
the front lines of Vietnam every day. Like it is war
seriously.
in here.
No, yo, it's absolute war. It's the biggest form of PTSD that a domesticated person will have. Seriously, because
Mhm.
when you when you when you lose a spouse, when you lose anybody, it's hard. When you lose a spouse, you talked about it. Look, that person is 50% of your life, pretty
If
much.
not more.
Financially,
They're your
mentally,
partner, they're your
emotionally,
co-parent, they're your
everything.
lover,
They,
they're your
the person you lean on
confidant,
with,
your friend,
right, everything.
for all these different hats that they wear.
And it's like, when you go through that situation, you lose all those components. And now, piece by piece, you're trying to figure out how to remanage that.
Well, yeah.
Who is the confidant? Who is the friend? You know, do
And then your
I
friend circle's
love somebody?
deteriorated because all
Right.
your friends are couples and nobody wants to hang out with the third sad wheel.
The bananas thing is the fact that, you know what? You It's hard because when you're going through a challenge like losing your spouse, you know, you want to maintain strength, but it's incredibly difficult when you were in love for so long with someone. And then you have to do things without being strong. You just have to do them.
You still have to
And
be strong, but you don't want to, or you don't know
right,
how, or you don't
right.
have that person to encourage you. And, you know, I think about Craig helping me grow up and being so young. Like I said, when I was 23 when we met, we were 24 when I got married. It's not exactly the same for you, but it's similar because you and Kim met when you guys were young. You were in college
uh,
and you had that time. So you grew up together. You guys had those trial by fires
right.
together, which made it even stronger for you guys. And then to just, it's like being that college kid all over again. Like, you
Yeah,
know, I couldn't even imagine that mentality and that experience. And then having two babies, I mean, your girls were older, but still like your girls. And as a father, it's your role and your want and your biological drive to protect your daughters. I mean, protect your children in
true.
general, but there's something about a
Your
father
daughters.
daughter
Yes,
relationship.
yes,
I'm
yes.
very close with my dad. I understand that. And it doesn't matter if they're, if it's a healthy relationship or a good relationship, there's a biological drive in the
Absolutely.
testosterone chemical for the man, the male, the provider, the pack leader, whomever, to protect the offspring. And more so when they're female offspring because of that biology in
True.
the differences in what our biologies are intended to do, right? A nature thing. And I'm not saying that men are stronger than women, and I'm not saying that men are better than women. But if we think back to caveman times, men were the hunters
Women
and
were the
women were the
gatherers.
gatherers, which is
Yep.
why women can see on average 26 more colors than men can.
Hmm.
If you actually put up like a color thing and you're like, how many colors are here? Men will see like 7 and women will see like 36 because our eyes are biologically and evolutionarily trained to discern more shades of color so we could tell which berries were poisonous and which ones weren't.
You know what? Here's what's crazy. That is a great skill to have now, especially when you go to the paint store.
Yeah, as an
Because
interior design person, I'll
because
tell
I'm
you
like,
what, I'm
I
like,
look at
that's
all
not
of them,
gray, that's smoke.
right. I'm like, that's blue. That's dark blue, that's light blue. No, that
Yeah,
is
but is it
eggshell
cobalt or
blue,
is it
that's
sky or is
right.
it yeah,
Right.
is it
You know,
sapphire or is it
but
we could
you
do
know
we could
what?
do that, but that's what I'm saying is so biology, like just biology and evolution, men have a drive to protect their female offspring in a different
True,
way. And maybe if
true.
you'd had, boys, that would be different too, because it's that like your lineage, your your namesake, right? But you had two daughters and it was just you, and you had to learn very quickly not only how to relate to young women in that way, which not that you didn't before, but now it's only one where you couldn't just be like,
Right.
Kim, I don't know, these girls are crazy, help me translate. There was no one there to translate for you.
Well,
And
you
then
know
on
what?
top of that, you had that protector mentality happening while being back in this mindset of a 19-year-old college kid where Kim left you because
Right.
that's the last save point. You know, if we put it in video game terms, that's the last save point. So
But you know
you're
what?
right back there.
Kate, it goes right back to what you were talking about. Look, I had to sit in that shit for a minute. Oh my God. And like I had to sit. There were nights where I'd be, what am I gonna do with these kids? What am I gonna do? You know, I mean, and you know it. I mean, Kate, from your side, think about it. I mean, you are raising a man child. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, he's 15 right now, and
Almost 15, but yeah,
oh,
he's a grown ass man practically, which is terrifying. Come at
oh,
me at 5 o'clock this morning and his voice is about 6 octaves lower than I'm used to. I'm like, shake the floor at me. I'm
eh,
like, who the hell do you think you're talking to that low?
and you know what?
I forget sometimes.
The crazy part about it is like Craig would have walked him through that,
Hmm.
just like Kim would have walked the girls through
Oh
things.
yeah.
But
I thank God every day that Craig and him already had the birds and bees talk, but there've been some speed bumps where I'm just like, I know this is super icky to talk to your mommy about. However, we need a sidebar conversation. And then I have to go take a hot shower with a Brillo pad afterwards because I'm like,
right.
I don't want to think about that. Like, I don't want to have that conversation.
Yo, Kate, let me explain something to you.
Tell me something.
I'm gonna tell you something now, because this the one that's going to truly mess you up.
Okay. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure I'm already messed up. I have more issues than Vogue.
Nope, nope. Let me explain something to you. Nope. This one right here gonna put you on the next level.
Okay.
See, see, when I found out that the girls were having sex,
Oh my God, don't say those words to me. I don't want to
see,
think about that.
now do you understand why I'm saying next level?
Yep.
Okay. And the bad part about it is this, yo, as a father, you want to make you want everyone in sainthood, period. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm saying?
None
And
now,
then
none. Yep.
and then when you but then you also think about something like I thought about when I was a young kid, I was like, yo, all those girls, they were somebody's father. You know, I mean somebody's daughter, you
See, that's
know
the
what I'm
real
saying?
messed up part. That's the real messed up part is Craig and I used to like go to the strip club every now and then because it was just fun to go as a couple. And I would
Yeah.
always ruin it for him because I would just lean in and be like, I wonder what her daddy thinks of this. And he'd be like, damn, no, I gotta go. Like, which
I
was even
mean,
more messed up because of our age difference.
right. Yeah,
He was like, don't you
yeah.
dare call me that.
I mean,
I'm a
hey, you
jerk.
know what? But you know what? We gotta have that conversation down the line
Yeah.
because I have got to I've got to understand how a 20-year age difference really worked the way it worked. You
You know,
know, like
it's
no,
so crazy though.
don't. The reason why is because
You want to do that one as
this
a
is
whole
that
other
this
conversation, huh?
deserves a whole episode.
Okay. All right. Put a pin in it.
Yeah,
Remind
because
me,
they
my
are.
short-term memory is shit. All those brain chemicals, working
It's
against
all
me.
good. It's all good. You know
You
what I'm
know it.
saying?
You know it.
But
Yeah,
I
no, I mean
mean,
it's crazy to me like the things that we learn that we need to do,
yeah,
the things that we learn to do, like, you know, I think I've said it before, people used to celebrate me when I like scheduled the septic tank to be pumped or mowed the lawn or yeah, Craig rode the riding tractor most of the time, but I'm like, do y'all remember who he was? Like he was not the rough and tumble rolling around in the dirt guy. I'm the one out in the garage laying under the car changing the headlights and he's inside like on the computer like setting up the VPN. Like why are you guys applauding me from the sidelines? Like, good for you. You started the lawn
Uh,
tractor. bitch, I took it up last spring when he
You
was
know what?
alive.
Again, see, the whole all that, and this is what I seriously what I explain to clients. All what you're saying, and I know you know this, let all that bullshit go. And the reason why is because the truth of the matter is when people come at you in that certain way, you said it. First, they're trying to make themselves feel better. Second, second, they're looking at the fact that you are fulfilling something that they saw as in not able for them to do. You
That's a
know,
good point. Yeah, they're seeing it as like something they would have potentially failed at.
yep.
I didn't
So
think about it in
now,
that way. That's a good point.
so now the whole thing is like, you know what? I'm so proud, and you know that I'm so proud of you as a facetious. I'm
It's
so
another one of
proud of
those
you type of
platitudes.
thing.
Like I hate
It's
that shit.
and again, and don't get me wrong. Everybody that gives you a comment, they're not trying. They don't have anything
They
backhanded.
don't
That's
mean
not
it
what
with
I'm saying.
malice, but I think that's also
No,
like a scapegoat because at some point there has to be accountability. If we can teach them better, if we can provide them better, then there's no excuse for them to say that bullshit. You know, like when my boss told me, well, when my cat died, well, yeah, your 16-year-old cat who had cancer for 12 years is not the same as my husband, who was
right,
my children's
right.
father and pays half the bills. So while it was very sad and tragic you lost your cat, respectfully,
But you know what? That's now that's another put a pin in a conversation
that's a
because
regrief, and I hate that shit too.
yep, because that one I'm gonna say all I'm gonna say on that real quick is that one is someone making a mistake of trying to compare their circumstance to yours. And
Yep.
that's horrible
What they're really
because
doing is just, I think it's a lack of understanding of what to say, like getting comfortable with the uncomfortable and just allowing. So people try to relate anecdotally, but what ends up happening is it ends up minimizing the experience for the person you're trying to relate to. You know,
you know
like
what?
it minimizes it and it takes away from that moment, and instead it just needs to be a there is nothing I can say, or I have no idea, or I have no words, or
All right.
you know all of
But you
that
know
type of
what?
shit.
See, people don't do that. Come on, man. We live a look, silence is frustrating to people.
Oh, it's
So
uncomfortable.
so
People
somebody's
work
got
to
to you
fill
got
the
to say
silence.
something. Yeah, you got to say something. And you rather say the wrong thing than nothing. And
The road to hell is paved with good intentions, I suppose.
yeah, but you know what? I mean, I'm gonna tell you something. It's funny. We see here's this is why I love talking to you because we will go 9 ways to Tuesday on the subject. Like our original subject was supposed to be your love story. We haven't told
Right.
one
We
iota
haven't
of
told
that
the
one
love
yet.
story really yet.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like, but you know what? I like that. See,
I
here's the
like it
one
too because
thing.
I think these types of conversations are important, and
Yep, yep.
it'll give more to those conversations when we have them for the listeners, because this is the real shit. Like this is the shit we're going through, and this is the stuff that helps us
Exactly.
process those every days. Because like how many times do we have to reschedule this conversation? Because grieving takes so much time and energy and activeness. And even if you don't,
And you know what, Kate? See, I'm sorry for cutting you off. And the
you're
reason
fine.
why, no, I'm just saying the reason why is because I clearly have that same type of brain where
Oh,
I be
yeah.
forgetting
Oh,
shit.
that's what I was gonna say was like
You know
how
what
long
I'm
did it
saying?
take to coordinate this conversation, right? Because
Seriously.
it was either like a scheduling thing, or like I think there's a couple grief things, or even before we did the first one, right? Like after I told my lost story, and then I had to be like, hey, listen, we can't do any more today. And then you did yours, and then we had to move things, and then this one has taken us a little bit. So we mean well to like get together. But that's the other thing about grief that people don't understand is like the flexibility and agility it takes. And there's just such a lack of space and understanding for that in the real world, for, if you know what I mean, like the humans out there, because I feel like we're Harry Potter at Hogwarts now.
It's,
We've got all these like magic powers because
yo, man. But you know what though, Kate? His was funny. And I want to make sure I say this without sounding real bad. Look, I loved him to death. I really did.
Literally.
You know, but I also now realize something that in order for me to be able to be the type of person I'm being,
Yes.
I either would not have ever
Exactly what
had
you're
to
gonna
know
say.
Kim
Yep.
or, you know what I'm saying?
No, I know
And
exactly what you're gonna say because I feel the same way, and I feel like such an asshole sometimes for being like, I couldn't be
yes,
my highest self
yes,
if he hadn't died.
yes.
So it's not that I wish him dead, but I
Right, right,
understand and accept as much as it hurts that it was his time, that he was a reason,
right,
not a
right,
season.
right,
Like he
right.
was the catalyst in
The
my
creator,
story.
yes. I
Yes, the
mean, look,
creator in my story. He was that jump point for me to achieve that higher
like
self.
like I always say that our destiny, our destiny is planned and scheduled. But
Mm.
fate, see, fate will take a series of twists and turns that will still
Mhm.
lead you to that same circumstance.
Yep.
But it's like you seen where you like put a roll of ball down, it's like all these different
Yep.
pieces. It's that type of thing.
Like the
And
plan and it's a straight
yeah,
line. What actually
yeah.
happened? It's like
Exactly. And it
exactly.
go, I mean, but the destiny of that, like the bottom line is that all those balls are gonna go into the same hole.
Yep.
When and where and how, and who knows. But
Like,
it's the same thing
and
about
that's a whole
this.
other conversation too. Is like that brings like a spirituality aspect into it, and karma and fate and all of those things. And I always say that religion is for people trying to get into heaven, and spirituality is for people who've been through hell. Because
Great way to say it.
I not that there's anything against religion, right? But people really find their true faith and their true spirituality within their religion if they choose to be religious when they have that trauma. And for the people who quote lose their faith, another whoops, where did I put it? People who lose their faith, it's because they found that it was empty and lacked spirituality. And
Yes,
so that's kind of what
yes.
happened for me was I went more into the spiritual realm of understanding the paranormal and sacral cranial massages to move cerebral fluid and hypnotherapies and yoga and chakra balancing. And I leaned all into that because I needed something that helped me tune in to my body in order to process through the grief. And it was so much bigger than me. And I've been doing talk therapy and various therapy modalities since I was a kid. I've been in therapy since I was like 9. So like I am well versed
In
in the
therapy.
psychotherapies and all their modalities. But even with therapy and medical intervention and the Western approach to mental health, none of it really alleviated or helped me tap into what I was feeling and have the tools to articulate it and then allow it to move through my body. Because you can want it to move all day long, but if there is a boulder in the way, guess what? The water ain't going anywhere. So when
But
you
here's what's
learn for the water to move through the cracks in the rock, you unlock the power of the current and you let the grief move through you.
and you know what, Kate? Yo, what's interesting about it is that that blockage comes from our perspective of seeing the circumstance. Say, for instance, we lost that love of our life type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Perspective can make it so that the waterways they won't give you any water at all. Or you can find a way to, like you said, get around that boulder, break that boulder up, whatever what have you, and have that new, whatever the new situation is,
It's
come
about
on.
allowing.
You
If you
you
try to swim up current, you're not going to get as far as
right,
if you flow with the current. And that's really like one of the key secrets I've found to unlocking
yeah,
grief is
yeah,
to not ruminate in it. And that's that swimming against the current. And we don't choose to necessarily stay sad, but we also don't actively choose to be happy until it's a choice. And that's
And
the
that,
difference.
and that's the thing about, and on top of that too, it's like the world wants us to be reminded of how challenging a circumstance is. And then we don't want to believe that we're allowed to have happiness.
Well, because then when we have happiness, we feel guilty because everyone tells us we're supposed to be sad. That's the other thing. And I don't know how it is for the male perspective, but like people were real confused when I was laughing and telling jokes and, experiencing joy and choosing to go do things. And, I was posting a whole series of like last year where I just started doing things on my bucket list. People are like, bucket list, isn't that because you're like when you die? And I'm like, well, no, I just realized I have nothing left to lose. So why not do some of my bucket list
Right,
stuff?
right.
And they were like, well, that's a little morbid, don't you think? And I was like, no. And then they get all confused and twisted and like, well, why are you, I don't know, like it just doesn't feel appropriate. And I'm just like, what doesn't feel appropriate? That I'm not like crying on Father's Day because he's dead? Like, it's
But you know
sad and
what?
I'm sad for my kids, but like at the same token, my dad's still alive. So I'm not sad on Father's Day. Like my kids do stuff and like they're not sad. So why should I have to be sad? There's a forced grief on us
Yes, yes.
on certain times and days. And in the reverse, there's a force like we're not supposed to be sad all the time. It's a double-edged sword. Like we're supposed to be sad, but also not too
That's
sad and not sad all the time. But we're supposed to be functional and take care of the kids, but also if we're functioning too well, there's something wrong with us.
Wait, check it out. Here's what the situation is. We are supposed to be upset enough for someone to rescue us, but we're not supposed to be so upset to not be rescued.
Yes, but also we're supposed to be upset enough where we need help, but not so upset that like we can't survive without the help because nobody's going to come help you. And they
You
expect you to ask for it when you don't have the,
right.
again, scientific bandwidth to do so, when you don't have
So
the capacity. And people are like, oh, you should have called or let me know if you need anything. And it's like,
listen,
how about
because they
you pick up
are
the phone and check in?
no, Kate, everybody wants to do this. They want to make you responsible for why they didn't perform.
Mm-hmm. It's
You
not on
see,
them. Yeah, it's
right,
passive
it's not
aggressive.
on them. I mean, so look,
I
it,
literally had a friend say to me, well, it's a two-way street. You could have called me. I'm
oh,
like,
I've heard that before. I've heard that
I'm like,
before.
but like he died like a month ago. I'm supposed to call
But you know
you
what?
and say happy birthday. I'm sorry.
But here's what's crazy. The truth of the matter is that is what people expect. They
Yeah.
expect for and it's not unfair. Think about it.
No, I mean
How
that
many times did
expectation
you
comes from like
know
years and years and years of
and and
imposed.
and let's be honest, I know I thought about the shit. If somebody couldn't make something that I needed to have done or happen, you know, I'm not thinking that maybe they had some real deal life circumstance to deal with.
No, we got
I'm
angry. Did
thinking,
you get angry? Because I
right,
got fucking angry when
right,
people didn't show up after they
right.
say, well, if you need something, call me.
You
So that's
know,
something I talk to my clients about is like, don't expect help,
yep, yep.
but be
And
grateful when you get it.
when it comes, right,
Be
don't,
humble and be grateful when you get it,
yep,
but do not expect it, even if people
yep,
tell you they're going to be there, because nobody is going to save you. And everyone's like,
have a
oh,
lateral plan.
no,
That's right.
I
Have
am
a
no
plan.
princess. I do not need saving.
Right,
I am a
right.
goddamn queen. Let me fix my crown. Like,
Seriously. And it's like, yo, that's, look,
yep.
same thing. Look, I talk to, I actually have a client who's kind of going through a circumstance.
Mm,
And, you know, and I talk to him about these things because again, he knows my story.
hmm
So, we're talking about, he's like, how did you get through this? I said, listen, man, I had to be very clear is that I had to become a totally different person for me to
Almost
be
like a
able to
superhero
survive.
persona.
Yep. In
Like
order
you got
for
to pull
me
the
to
Clark
survive in
Kent
this
Superman
world,
thing.
yeah. I mean, because the world has changed. Your world may not have, mine has. So
And how I
now,
understand it and how I
right,
navigate it and everything
right.
else has changed. Yep.
And it's like, if you don't, excuse me, if you don't make the choice, you said it earlier, if you don't make that choice to change, then you're going to just be subject to what the world expects of you in the way of this grief, in the way of these challenges. Look, we know the traditional mode of thinking is no, throw on your black, get ready to go,
Yep.
walk around the coffin and go to the gravesite, if you're Christian
Yep.
or whatever, what have you. And whatever your religion is, your death tradition, there are people that are really on that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole thing is understand that that part of it is one part of it.
Hmm.
The part that no one sees is what happens after all those things. And
After
that's,
everybody goes home, when you're
yep.
left to your
And
own
that's,
devices.
that's where our world starts.
Because, 6, 8 weeks out,
Yep.
the sympathy cards stop rolling in. Everyone's dropped off their casseroles. They've all gone to the services, sent their sympathy cards, signed you up for the food train. And then they go back to normal. They go back to work and their Christmas card photo shoots and their Sunday brunches and their, PTO meetings. And we are just alone,
But you know what?
abandoned, destitute. And
No.
we have to, well, we're left on a deserted island and we have to make our own raft.
But listen, Kate, here's what I find interesting about that. And this is one of my talks. You must know the difference between alone and lonely.
Yes,
You
fair.
see,
Thank you for correcting me on that.
no problem, man. Look, I had to deal with it because you could be lonely in front of 100 people,
Yeah.
but and I put it like this. I tell a person alone is being in a movie.
Mm,
You may be the lead actor, you have your roles. Alone, on the other hand, you're the director, producer, writer, actor, you're every part of it
mm,
because you are seeing the circumstance as it is occurring.
mm.
And you are you're choosing to walk through it and observe it like a movie reel. Where on the other hand, you're attempting to make changes to the movie. You see what I'm saying?
It's interesting that you say that because initially, when I think about the grief experience, I often reference the movie Titanic. And it's not the first time I reference the movie in my grief experience. I said he hashtag Jack Dawsoned me. Um, but I also say within that movie, Kate Winslet says a line that always stuck with me. She said, I felt as if I was standing in a crowded room screaming at the top of my lungs and no one even looked up. And that's how grief can often feel,
Yes,
that
yes.
you are just a ghost floating along amongst the living and
But here's where,
you have to make the decision to accept that no
yeah,
one is going to look up. No one is going to come rescue you. And
and
that is a
here's
hard pill to
why.
swallow when you are already feeling lonely.
But here's why you shift lonely into alone. Alone gives you an opportunity to know yourself better. Alone gives
If
you an
you
opportunity.
accept that power.
Again, we're now looking at the person who is choosing to be lonely versus the person who chooses to be alone. The person
And
who
they always
chooses to
say, like,
be,
oh, you can't love until you love yourself. And I've always thought that that was a bullshit platitude. But this is really the essence of what they mean. Is it's not necessarily about loving yourself, but it's about being comfortable being lonely and being
Right,
alone and doing
right.
things to fill your own cup and to take care of yourself wholly and not depend
And,
on another person.
and that's the biggest problem with the humans. Look, we want to be around everybody. You look, man, we want to be seen.
Biologically are driven on social contracts.
But you know what? The learning to be alone. See, what that does is that gives you that additional strength, like I talked
Mhm.
about. Um,
Because now it doesn't
you
matter if people talk at you sideways. You know you can fill
no,
your own cup.
no. And
When
on
when
top of
you get
that,
back out there and start dating, it don't matter if they're an asshole because it's like I don't need you anyway. I'm choosing you, and if you
right,
can't
right,
step up to the plate, then don't let the door hit
time to
you. You
go.
know,
You
you
know,
don't settle for shit,
and that's the whole thing. See, that's what that's what this teaches you. Let me explain something. I
and
mean,
it takes a
like
strength that we don't know we have until we have to have it.
it kills me when I be listening to cats and be like, man, I've been married 3 times. I was like, damn, the first two didn't work. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Well,
like,
Craig's uncle did say to him at both his first wedding and at our wedding, you cannot have a successful second marriage until you have a terrible first one.
yes,
Now, mind you,
yes.
Craig's first marriage was that woman was abhorrent. And he said it to his face next to her at his first wedding. And then in the receiving line at our wedding, he said it again. And Craig was like, well, Uncle Rick, you weren't wrong.
Hey, I mean,
Shout out to Uncle Rick.
but you know what? Let me tell you, that's real. See, you have to
That doesn't
go through the
necessarily mean like
heartbreak.
everyone's first marriage is bad, but it could mean that there was something traumatic that happened and you don't
No,
have the
you
opportunity to have
learn,
that good the second time until
you
you embrace the
learn.
bad that was the
Yeah,
first time.
you learn the second time around. Listen, like I
Yep.
said, I look, Kim loved my life. Like I told you, towards the end of our relationship, things were pretty rocky. And,
Mhm.
but the one thing that our relationship taught me was that, you know what, when I find the woman again that I'm in love with, whatever, look, I'm not going to go back to the ways that things were with me and Kim. I learned from that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I I learned, and it was just like, like I said, I mean, the one thing I had the blessing of, and I had the blessing was that even though we were in a hard place, it unfortunately when she passed, you know, things between her and I, before she passed, things between her and I, we were learning to try to develop a heel. You
Mm.
know what I'm saying? Even though she couldn't talk, it- the fact that,
Yep.
again, like I said before, the fact that she, on her deathbed, told me she was sorry.
I
Like I
know.
said, I mean, and you in
Still
a
gives me
full
goosebumps to
coma,
think about.
and I'm like, so it allows you to think about some things, allows you to say to yourself, you know what? I'm, I will be blessed if I have this type of circumstance again, or it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
similar, but
It's apples
if
to oranges,
right, if
like
I
you
have a
can't
love
ever be
experience, that's
right.
it. And it's like if I have a love experience again, I know that I'm going to. There are things I'm going to use from my
Oh,
last relationship, and there
absolutely.
are things that I'm definitely not going to use from our last relationship.
Like, well, that
You
didn't
know,
work. Not gonna do that again.
right,
Yep. I know
right.
that.
And I mean, and so, like what Craig's uncle said is true. You gotta have a shitty first marriage in order to have, or
Yeah,
not even
and
shitty,
definitely put
just
a pin in that too,
different.
because dating after becoming a member of the widowhood community is a whole other echelon of things we could just spend forever talking about. As someone who has
Now, that's
recently come
actually
out of the
that's
dating
on our
pool
list.
again,
But you came out.
I'm out the dating pool.
You know what? Yeah, I
Put a
was
pin
gonna
in
say
it,
put a
but
pin in.
yeah,
No, no, no. Talk about that. You
we're
know
gonna
what I'm
talk
saying?
about it now.
All right.
All right.
Well, no,
I am
actually,
officially seeing a gentleman, and it is serious enough where we're
good.
discussing
Next
imminent
level.
future cohabitation.
You deserve it, Kate.
It is a terrifying ride, but he
Oh,
has been so absolutely incredible beyond any expectation of patience, of understanding, of gratitude towards Craig, of holding space for Craig. He says his name. He talks about him like he's still here and in the room. He asks questions. He embraces traditions. He makes space. He anticipates things. He's learned what those trigger points are for me, and I'm sure there'll be more that
oh,
come up, but he's so just authentically okay with it, and that I was so skeptical of, because in other dating experiences they all say they are, and then when it gets real they all
right.
get scared and run, and I totally understand it, but I had healing to do too, and I think honestly the other things didn't work out because I hadn't completely finished that
Right.
healing that needed to happen. And again, grief never goes away and the healing doesn't ever really completely end, but you get to a point in your journey where you're so more of an elevated version of yourself because
Yeah.
you've just sat with it and allowed it to marinate and then allowed it to move through you and embraced the waves as they come. It's very much, for me, grief is very much a water metaphor. Like you have
But
to, ride the wave versus brace for
yeah.
impact. And you have to let the water find ways to form its pathway instead of trying to control it. And you have to swim with the current, not swim against it. Grief is very much like water. You
And
can
you're
hold it
right.
in your hands, but you're not going to hold much. If you allow it to just exist and take up as much space as it needs to, you're going to get a whole lot more. It
And you know
is
what?
really an incredible thing that he just understands that, even though he's never experienced that type of loss.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna say this. We're gonna end that because there's a whole yo. We ain't gonna give away a whole nother episode. We're not gonna
Mm,
do that. You know, but
That's
no,
just a little teaser for the next one then. How about that? There you go. There's
there we
our
go.
trailer for the next one.
You see, the only reason why I say that, and like I said, I'm gonna shut this down, but like all my friends, my daughter, everybody call me the Shaolin monk because they like, damn man, you ain't doing nothing. You ain't got no girls. You ain't this. You ain't. But you know what? I'm like I said,
Yeah.
for me, look, I was married for 17 years. I was with Kim 26 years. You
Hmm.
know, man, I ain't doing that again. You know, or I mean, not to say I won't get
Yeah,
married.
no, and I
What
don't
I'm
think,
saying is,
I'm
I'm
getting
not
married again per se. I
right.
just think
What
it's
I'm
not
saying is,
legally.
I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna put myself in a situation where I'm going to um not better know the person that I want to be with. I mean, for
Because
me
you
and
understand
Kim,
what it takes to get that
yeah,
much time with someone. You
exactly. I
understand that
mean,
what it really takes to
we
get
grew
there.
together. We grew together so much. I mean, we were both 18 when we started.
Yeah,
You
you guys
know,
are babies.
we grew together. Well,
You
now
grew up together.
now I want to know what it's like to be alone. I mean, not
No,
alone,
but just to
but
enjoy you.
yeah, to see and to know something different. And I don't like, what I'm saying? I don't want to put any of my old feelings with Kim on a new person or anything like
Yeah.
that. So,
There's
you
no
know
rush
what?
to it because if you are content and you are filling your own cup, then that is all that matters. And if the professional companionships that you're forming and the platonic companionships that you're forming, like what you and I have, is enough for you, then that's all that matters. Because people are gonna say shit. People are gonna say shit, but
Let put it this way. Well, we're going to end this one by saying we have no idea what the hell the original theme was, but we do know this. We know that me and Kate can have some awesome conversations that can spark a lot of real good thought processes for people. Take the time to listen to what we're saying because we talk from the heart. I mean, we're just talking. We're really on some keep it real. That's it.
Off the
You
cuff.
know,
Yep. Flying by the
and,
seat of our pants today. But you know
I
what?
mean,
I think it was an important conversation, and I think that we actually did a pretty good job of staying on the topic of where we started.
yeah, we put it
It's
this way.
that development
We
and that
got,
discovery of who you are.
I mean, seriously, make sure you like and subscribe to have access to our future content as well. You know, I'm Jay. So until next time, this is my friend Kate.
I'm Kate, and with grief and gratitude, we will see you on our next Happily Never After.
You've been listening to Happily Never After, part of the Xvadio Podcast Network. You can catch every episode of Happily Never After, as well as the rest of the network, at xvadio.com, the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and wherever you find podcasts.